All right, we begin, of course, with shipping, given that up to 90% of international trade is transported across oceans. Ensuring the safety of maritime operations is of utmost importance. According to the Safety and Shipping Review 2024, just published by Allianz Commercial, the global shipping industry has made remarkable progress in reducing vessel losses over the past decade. However, the report highlights there are some alarming trends that threaten to reverse this positive trajectory. We're happy to have joining us from Paris, Wayne Steele. He's the Senior Marine Risk Consultant with Allianz Commercial. Good morning to you, Wayne. Thank you so much for being with us. So we got a chart from your report that shows the gradual fall in total shipping losses by year. Can you speak to what has contributed to that fall?
Yeah, good morning, Reuters. Happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So yeah, we are very encouraged to see that in spite of there being some sort of notable serious incidents taking place in the market, generally speaking, the trend is downward. Year on year between 2022 to 2023, there was as much as a third reduction in total loss incidences. So very pleased to see that. In terms of the reasons for that, we do think that in spite of the industry still having a long way to go, there has been a tremendous uptick in regulation control, and we're starting to see the results of that regulation coming into effect. As a result of that, we're seeing, in general, the trend is down regarding total losses in the industry.
All right, that's good to hear. Also, you've got a chart on the losses by region. It's led by South China, Indonesia, and the Philippines. How come that region is the highest?
Yeah, that's correct. I think in 2023, we saw approximately a third total losses occurring in these regions. The simple answer to that is I think it's just that is where a large amount of vessel traffic is moving between the different regions. And that's just reflective in the results we see regarding incidents taking place.
All right, this has made a lot of news. The Suez Canal, ships, vessels taking alternate routes. You have a map in your report that shows the alternate routes that have been taken to avoid the Suez Canal. Can you speak to the cost implications of this longer journey with the bold line that we're showing our viewers now on the map?
Yeah, costs are very difficult to say, but essentially we're dealing with an additional, I think it's about 3,000 nautical miles distance that these vessels have to travel if they go via Cape of Good Hope. So it's difficult to determine because so many factors take place, but that's probably around an additional 10 days of sailing time. So the cost can be significant. We've come across figures that could exceed $1 million USD addition to do these longer transits. But of course, as I mentioned, it will depend on the circumstances involved.
Now, I mean, if I make an analogy or comparison with farming, and if it takes longer for goods, or rather farm produce, to be transported from a farm to make it all the way to urban centers, I take it we would have to pay more in terms of cost. So are these higher costs being transferred with the case of this still on the Suez Canal route?
Yeah, you raise a great point, Reuters. So I think the more pressing issue regarding additional costs is what will be the result of these delays in additional transit times. So as you can imagine, an additional 10-day transit time within a container market where the logistics and supply chain is very well run, very controlled with time delays, and the market obviously reflects that. So essentially speaking, if you have an additional 10 days extended within the transit time of a container, no doubt that cost is going to reflect in the retail market as well.
Thank you so much. We got to talk about another thing that's making a lot of news that your report touches on, which is piracy. You've got two figures here I want to show our viewers. First off is the number of piracy incidents against ships. According to your report, that's up about 4.3% from 115 in 2022 to 120 in 2023. And then we've got another one here, crews taken hostage. That much bigger jump, 78%, 41 in 2022 to 73 in 2023. Can you help us break this down? Are these increases are they piggybacking on the existing geopolitical concerns or tensions, or is it a separate issue? Because we've always talked about piracy in the past.
Yep, definitely two separate issues. We initially did, speaking to piracy, we initially did see some reductions, but particularly the last 2 years around the Cape of Horn of Africa region, starting to see a slight uptick in piracy incidents. And then, of course, the geopolitical incidents taking place in the Red Sea. where some of these vessels are being attacked by the Houthi militants. That is obviously accounting for a large number and increase in numbers.
Now, as far as what can be done to combat piracy, because maybe I can take this back to the very first question I asked you with okay, well, that was shipping losses, so actually that's kind of separate. So now let me stick to piracy. Can insurance cover piracy? Is there room for built-in for ransom payments? How does that work?
Yes, so typically this would fall under a different type of insurance called P&I insurance, which essentially means protection and indemnity liability for the ship owner. So they would have, Allianz is not necessarily a P&I club insurer, so I'm not too sure on what other products are there, but typically there would be a product called a kidnap and ransom insurance policy. And that's the policy that would provide the coverage to, in the event of piracy incidents or paying of ransom and that sort of thing.
Are there any other measures, in your view, that I guess companies, vessels are taking to reduce piracy? Is it a case of having to just avoid some of those regions?
Yeah, I think, look, as I mentioned before, we did see a reduction in piracy incidents. I think particularly thanks to the support of naval military in the region. So a lot of the regions provided naval support to merchant vessels transiting those regions, and that definitely played a large role. So I think if they continue doing that, I think it's the only way to do it. And in the meantime, not to speak too much on the geopolitical issue, but without those issues being being concluded, unfortunately, I think the consequences are going to continue being seen in the market results.
And Wayne, to your view, we're just talking about the Suez Canal and having to go 3,000 extra nautical miles and how that contributes to cost. With the military assistance, that's not a cost to the companies, right? That's the sovereign government that is in charge of that, exactly. Right? So there's no cost, extra cost there.
Yeah, that's how I understand it. But I can't speak too much to the sort of sovereignty and implications that has, but to my knowledge, not.
Okay, great. All right, I do want to get to another. Again, your report touches on a number of issues that made headlines over the past few months. The Baltimore Bridge collapse. Your report mentions that. What are the lessons learned from that incident that killed like 6 people, I think?
Yeah, so it's still a little bit too early to draw all lessons from it. The investigation is still underway, but it does seem that the preliminary reports suggest that the reason for the incident was a power outage. So in other words, the vessel lost power, lost propulsion. And so, whilst we are seeing a downward trend in incidences when dealing with such larger vessels, it's almost as if when these incidences do occur, they tend to be a lot more significant, as is the case in Baltimore. So we're looking at this very closely. At this stage, we wait to see what's happening with the investigation. And once we have some more fixed details regarding that, we'll be able to provide some more concrete lessons learned on that case.
Thank you so much. Your report does touch on technology in the maritime sector. I mean, I guess 2 sides here. How has it improved things, if at all? And I guess your report did mention the dangers of cybercrime. So can you speak to both of those?
Yep. Yes, so technology has moved a lot, and I think it's done a great thing. I think the results that we're seeing in amount of losses occurring in 2023, still continuing that downward trend, I think is a testament to that fact. And so no doubt the technologies that are helping seafarers with navigation, propulsion systems are becoming a lot more efficient. And so there definitely has been a positive impact. Of course, we can't help but mention that we are going through a phase at the moment which we need to watch closely with the sort of introduction of decarbonization. So not that the Baltimore incident has anything to do with that, but in the future we will see new technologies coming into effect. Vessels be using different types of fuels, methanol, ethanol, and all types of different new systems coming. So there's a lot of new technologies coming. I think that's where we need to focus our attention. So you've got 2 aspects. You've obviously got the systems on board, but then also the supply chain of, for example, a vessel that's run on ammonia. At this stage, I don't think the supply chain for supplying that vessel with bunkers is going to meet the demand. So we need to make sure that the industry is focusing on both aspects.
And on cybercrime, is there any risks there? I think your report did mention that.
Yep. Yeah. So cybercrime to now, I think the more concern has been rather on the logistics side. So there has been some incidents in the past involving some of the shipping lines and container operators who had some cyber incidences which impacted their operation and booking system. And you can imagine when you're dealing with tens of thousands of container movements per day, when the booking system gets impacted, that has significant consequences for the market, particularly with delays and possibly even cargo claims, etc. So in terms of cybercrime, that's been the main impact. But of course, as technologies improve on board vessels, we can't ignore the fact that we may start seeing some instances where cyber is impacting the actual operation and navigation of a vessel. And so we need to make sure that we continue discussing these aspects with role players and make sure that these new systems have the necessary security to protect the vessels and the market.
Thank you so much. Very informative conversation. Wayne Steele, Senior Marine Risk Consultant with Allianz Commercial. Thank you so much for sharing the report and talking to us on Arise News. You're watching the Global Business Report here on Arise News.